Hey everybody, we've got another portion of the Mauser Model 46 work that we've been working on. We've got the bolt today that we're going to be bending to make clearance for the scope that we mounted in the last video. So I've got a block here that was made specifically for bending these bolts. We've got it set up for the Mauser, and on the other side you can do Springfields and such like that. So I've got my acetylene torch over here. We've got our heat sink in the bolt. The blocks also act as a heat sink to keep that from migrating up into the portion of the bolt where it matters. The handle we're going to heat up pretty much red hot, and we're going to forge it down, put a little bit of a bend in it to tip it back up so it'll clear the stock. Once we do that, we'll let it cool off, and we'll come in here and we're going to do a little bit of scalloping on the top of the handle and on the knuckle here to relieve enough clearance so that you don't pinch your fingers when you're working the bolt. So let me get my safety goggles on and get the torch fired up, and we'll get after this one. Alright guys, got the light turned down in here right now so we can see the heat coming up, and I'm going to fire the torch up and you'll be able to see what we're doing. Alright, we're going to run with a soft flame with a little heavy on the acetylene. We're really not looking to burn this. We just want to keep it warm enough so that we can bend it. So let me don my goggles here. Alright. It'll take a few minutes for this to heat up. We'll go ahead and heat the ball up good because that's going to be part of a heat sink, and we don't want it to be drawing the heat out of this as we go. So we'll get this all warmed up good. You already see it's starting to change color there. So this isn't an instant process. It does require a little bit of time, a little patience. You know, with this much heat, there's going to be some scaling that happens, and generally though, you're going to be polishing this all off and doing some other work to it in most cases. Sometimes we'll even cut a notch in the bottom of the bolt handle root, take out a little segment, push it down against that if we're looking for some really substantial clearance. But with this particular one, we've got enough clearance with the bases that are already on the gun so that we shouldn't have to resort to that much fabrication on this particular bolt. Switch up pins here. All right, I think we've got enough bend in the handle now. What we're going to do is grab a screwdriver. I'm going to tip up that ball a little bit. Basically just give it a little bit of a bend right on that neck area, right there where it comes into the ball. All right, a little bit more there. Yeah, don't use your good screwdriver for this because you're going to draw the temper out of the tip. It's just an old beater I use around here. All right, this is pretty much bent where we want it. We'll just have to let it cool off, descale it, and polish it out. I'll go ahead and hit the torch off right now and we'll go back to daylight. All right, now that we've got our bolt, as you can see, it's been forged down and it's got some scale on it that we're going to have to clean off. We're going to go ahead and wire brush it here and probably get after it a little bit more in this area to clean it all up with some files and maybe belt sander. Let's look at it and see what it looks like after we descale it. All right, there's still some hard scale on there that we're going to have to get off with sandpaper. We'll do a little bit of file work here, scallop that out. So I'm going to take it back over to the vise where we can get a good clamp on it, and we'll get after it from there. All right, guys, we've got the bolt clamped up here in the vise. I'm going to grab a nice file and start to work on that. The area there where we were forging it needs a little bit more work, some dressing and a little more scalloping, so I'm going to grab a few different files here and work on that. And we've got some power tools to help with the balance of cleanup on here. All right, one thing I'm going to do before we get too far along, I'm going to grab the action and make sure that there's enough clearance for what it is we're trying to accomplish here. And so I'm going to grab that and set it up real quick with the scope in its ring set, and we'll see if we've got enough clearance here. All right, we've got it mocked up here. We just have the scope laying in its ring bases. We've got enough clearance on the scallop of the handle, but what we are running into is a little bit of clearance issue here on the knuckle. So what I'm going to do is take it over to the belt sander and remove a reasonable amount of that material, and then come back and finish dressing this out a little bit more. That's something that won't take me just a couple of minutes and get that cleared out of there, and otherwise we should be pretty good. As far as the clearance down, I'm going to be real close. I'm going to have to take a look at the stock and see. I'll put that in there real quick and take a quick look at that as well. All right, we do still have a little bit of clearance issue with the bend in the bolt and the stock clearance. So we may go back in here and do a little bit of inletting on the stock to clear that out. I think we'll still be good, be able to get a good hold on that bolt once we get it cleared out. There's still a fair amount of clearance underneath. So it doesn't have that much farther to go, just about 10 degrees. All right, a little bit of work on the belt sander, got the clearance where we needed it here. We Basically just took off a reasonable amount of the knuckle there. Still plenty of bolt handle material there for shaping and final polishing work. So mainly we'll just get after this with the with the files, a little bit of sanding cloth. Got a flap disc there on the drill that'll help with that to some degree. So just a matter of labor and time on that to dress it all up and refinish that. And we'll do a little bit of woodwork on the stock, and this will be set. It'll be ready to go at that point. Just gonna do a little bit of flap work on this to dress off some of these machine marks and such. And so they got a lot of our edges and everything knocked down pretty clean. Most of the sanding and tool marks out of it. Still going to be a little bit more work with just regular hand paper and files. So these are just some of my old sanding belts that get worn out or broken. Still quite useful. They're very tough. So if you break a belt on your belt sander, just set it aside. It's very good for purposes like this. Let you get into these corners. You can fold it and get into these roots where the shaft and the knob come together real well. Get in here easy on the back side where that flap wheel is not very effective. Definitely not the most glamorous part of the work that we do, but it's got to be done. Lots of different ways to go about it. Of course, this is one of the most basic ways to do it. I would imagine everybody at home can probably come up with some sandpaper and some elbow grease. I've got buffing wheels and carding wheels and polishing wheels that all definitely make this go a lot faster, but for the purposes of this video, we're just kind of doing this so that everybody out there in the do-it-yourself land can pick it up and not feel uncomfortable about doing it, not having to worry about having thousands of dollars worth of tools. And you can come up with the same results. It just adds a little bit more time to the project, but also gives you that personal satisfaction of putting your hands on it and coming up with a quality finished product. Just keep moving it around. You'll see little areas that need work as you go. You don't constantly work in the same area. Once you get everything polished up to your liking with this coarse paper, this is about an 80 grit belt that I've got here. You can of course switch up to something a little finer for finishing everything out. Probably go up to like a 150 and then a 240 for the final polish. It should be sufficient to go along with the military rifle that we've got here. If you're looking for mirror polish finish, you'd probably want to go on up to a 600 grit. Sometimes on these knobs, if you get one of these sanding sponges that actually conforms to the surface a little better, makes it a little bit easier to get into some of those areas that still have a little bit of scale. Now these are something you can pick up at one of your local hardware stores, Home Depot, that kind of thing. Paint and body shops have it as well. They're pretty cheap. Kind of perfect for odd shapes and hard to conform to pieces and parts. Trying to get a belt to float on that knob right there, it's not the easiest thing to do, so this will help that along quite a bit. Be sure that you alternate your sanding direction some. You can see your scratches that are left in the material that still need to be worked out if you keep alternating your directions. And until you get it down to that point where the only scratches you're leaving are by the coarseness of the grit that you've got, then you can step down to the next finer side. Once I'm relatively happy with the sanding and the filing work, which we got it down pretty good, I'm just going to go ahead and card it with a couple of different brushes before we do the touch-up bluing on it, just like we did on the top of the receiver. Go ahead and hit it with a fairly coarse brush and then step up to a little bit finer brush, and we should be good to go at that point. That burnished it up really nice. I'm going to hit it one more time with a little bit finer wire brush here. This one's kind of a spiral cut brush. All right, the carding is done. I believe we're just going to degrease this, warm it up a tad, and we're going to put some of that dicropen from Brownells on there and see if it'll blue up real nice. All right, we're going to go ahead and warm this up a little bit. I've degreased it. I'm just going to warm it up enough to flash off any humidity that may be in the air. Get a little bit of the dicropan here on our steel wool and just start working it in. Yeah, don't be afraid to use this stuff because it does quickly use itself up. It's a fairly fast acting chemical. Let's see, we've got a pretty solid color match going on there. So what we'll do is grab some towels here and dry it off. Take a look at that. Looks pretty solid. All right, and we're going to grab a little bit of Ballistol here to help neutralize those chemicals. Make sure that you get it all over, even areas that you're not sure that you got it on. Better safe than sorry, because this stuff will leave stains and cause residual rusting. So we got her set up and ready to go. Looking really good. All right, just got to do a little bit of stock inletting, and we'll do that. We'll probably do that at the same time we do the bedding work on the gun. Makes sense to do all your woodwork when you've got it there at one time. So guys, that'll be the next step in this process, will be the glass bedding and the inletting for the bolt knob, and any other problems we find in the stock when we start getting into it, we're going to repair those as we go. Guys, thanks a lot for watching. Hope this has been an informative and helpful video. If you guys have any comments, please set them in the comment section below, and I'll try to reply to you as best I can. Thanks, and have a good day.